सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। We are on page 9. Discussion is going on about dream, about waking, about the three states, to show how Atma is independent of these three states. That this waking, dream or deep sleep are not the states of Atma or consciousness, they are the states of the mind, and therefore while these different states of the mind are going on, Atma remains unaffected by them, unattached to them. Asanguhayam Purushaha, this Purusha, the Paramatma or Atma, is Asangaha, unattached. In the passage 18, how the asangatvam, how the unattachment, detachment of the Atma is explained with an illustration. Tadyatya mahamatsya ubhe kule anusancharati. Just as a very great fish like shark, ubhe kule anusancharati, at will goes from one bank of the river to the other, meaning that even if there is powerful current of the river, this big fish remains unaffected by them, and so Atma remains unaffected by the flow of thoughts in waking dream state, meaning that Atma does not get swept away in the current of thoughts. But Swami, I all the time get swept away in the current of thoughts. How do you say Atma does not get swept away? I get swept away. I, who is ego, does get swept away by the thoughts, because I identify with the thoughts and then go with the thoughts. So while the ego identifies with the thoughts, then also Atma, which is the essential nature of the ego. In ego, there are two aspects. In what ego or individual self, there are two aspects. One is, there is the conscious aspect, because ego is conscious. Other is the unconscious aspect, which is the thought form. Ego is the I thought. The I is the consciousness. The thought is something that is unconscious, changing or of the nature of matter. Therefore, ego has these two aspects, conscious aspect as well as unconscious aspect. That conscious aspect is Atma, unconscious aspect is the mind. So this kind of union takes place between the self and the mind. And the model that is given is that mind is a very good reflecting medium. Like water is a reflecting medium which naturally reflects any shining objects like the sun or the moon in the sky. So also mind is a natural reflecting medium that reflects Atma, that is shining consciousness. So we have the pool like mind in which Atma, the self, gets reflected, and the reflection seems to be affected by the reflecting medium. If the reflecting medium is shaky, then the reflection also appears shaky. If reflecting medium is dirty, then the reflection also appears to be dirty, understand? In fact, reflection does not shake. What is shaking is mind or water. Like when we look at our face in a tub or something, then looks like our face also is shaky, but it's not the face that is shaky, it's the reflecting medium water that is shaky. And it looks like the face also is shaking. So Atma doesn't get affected by the mind, but then the reflection is shaky. So looks like I am being swept away by the current of mind. I become agitated when the mind is agitated. The I is not Atma, it doesn't get agitated. But then Ahankara, which is a combination of Atma as well as Ahamvritti, that gets agitated. So even when all these agitations are going on, it is Aham, or the ego, that goes through these states of waking, dream, deep sleep. These are the states of the ego. You can say states of the mind or the states of ego. Ego is the Atma identified with the mind. Therefore, the states of the mind appear as though they are the states of Atma. In all these states, what changes is the mind, which goes through different states, and there the Atma, the self, ever remains unaffected, unchanged, just a witness. So that is explained in this passage 18. Just as a great fish or a big powerful fish independently moves from one bank of the river to the other, is not affected by the current of the water in the river, so also Atma does not get affected by the current of the river, that is the mind, and remains remains abiding in its own nature. Evameva ayam purusha ho anto anusancharati. Similarly also this Purusha, the Paramatma, he goes from one state to the other, from waking to sleep and from sleep to waking. So dream also is here sleep. Sleep includes both dream as well as deep sleep. There were two states that are considered, waking and sleep. Because when one is dreaming, as far as the outside, people are concerned, he's sleeping only. So, waking and sleeping. So just as a great fish at will moves from one bank of the river to the other, so also Atma at will as though goes from one state to the other, the waking to the sleep and sleep to the waking. And these states are compared to the river or the current of the river. Just as the fish does not get affected by current of water, so also Atma, the self, does not get affected by the states of the mind, whether it's waking or sleep. etau uho antau anusancharati swapnantam cha buddhantam cha. Swapna here means sleep, buddha means waking. So buddhanta means anta here is not and, but anta means within. So buddhanta means within Buddha. Buddha means waking. So buddhanta means waking. Not end of waking, but waking. Swapna here means sleep because there is only one root swap in Sanskrit, which is used both for dream as well as sleep. So swapnantam. So therefore, when he is sleeping or waking, so the mind goes through the states of being awake or sleeping. At that time the Atma remains unaffected by the states, meaning Atma does not sleep, Atma does not dream, Atma is not awake also. Because wakefulness is the state of mind. If you by wakefulness you mean, light of consciousness, that's a different thing. But when wakefulness is state of mind, then dream or sleep also is state of mind. The self remains unaffected by both the states. The mind assumes different states and the self remains unaffected, just as a big fish remains unaffected by the current of water. Moves from one bank to the other. Atma also as the moves from one bank waking to sleep, to waking to sleep. Meaning that it is unaffected by the states of waking. He does not, Atma is not awake, and Atma is not sleeping. Being awake is the state of mind, sleeping also is the state of mind. When mind undergoes different states, Atma remains ever independent, abiding in its own nature or own glory. If Swapnantam also is interpreted as dream and Buddhantam as waking, the next verse is for the deep sleep. Evam samprasadevi tad vilakshanatvam. Now here the sleep is described as samprasada, as we said in the morning. Samyak prasidati asminiti samprasadaha. Where one is totally pleased, totally happy, and that is the state of deep sleep. We are totally happy when we are fast asleep, because then we are close to our true nature. The reason why, even though happiness is our nature, the reason why we do not seem to be always happy in waking or even in dream is because of identification with the mind and the body. And therefore when the mind is unhappy, I feel I am unhappy. When the mind is happy, I feel I am happy. So because of identification with the body-mind complex in the waking, and in the dream also, where there is different body-mind complex, but in dream also a similar arrangement is there. Therefore, in waking and dream states, I do not experience my true happiness because of identification. And when you identify with the body, you feel limited. However happy you are in the waking state, because of identification of the body and the mind, you cannot become free from sense of limitation. Whereas in deep sleep state, there is no identification, therefore there is total freedom. So this Upanishad also discusses the deep sleep state in fair detail as an example of moksha. So deep sleep state here is later on being presented as an example of total freedom. Although we are not liberated in deep sleep, Had we been liberated, there would have been no need to wake up. So, but it is very close to moksha. The only difference is, in moksha there is a light of knowledge. In deep sleep there is a darkness of ignorance. So that way they may be extreme, but otherwise similar. Because in deep sleep also there is no identification with the body, that is when you can fall asleep. When you become free from the identity with the body and mind, then only you fall asleep. Sometimes we have difficulty in falling asleep when there is anxiety in the mind or pain in the body, when we cannot unidentify quickly. But then when that identification goes, we fall asleep. Thus in sleep, in deep sleep, we are close to our nature. Not quite, because there is darkness of ignorance. Other than that, there is similarity in terms of freedom from identification. A liberated sage also is free from identification with the body-mind, and a deep sleeper also is free from identification with body-mind. In that sense, they are similar. Therefore, the deep sleeper also enjoys total happiness, although there is no awareness that I am enjoying that. And therefore, even that experience of freedom in the deep sleep, there is freedom. Freedom is our nature. The reason why in waking we don't feel free is because of the, again, identification of the body. And so the limitation of body becomes my limitation. In a dream also a similar situation remains. In deep sleep there is freedom from identification. Therefore, there is total freedom, except I am not aware, unfortunately. If Ishvara had done this much for us, in deep sleep also we were aware of what we are experiencing, then we would have experienced moksha. But Bhagavan says, no, you have to work for it. But he does give us experience. So experience sort of similar to moksha, not moksha, but similar to moksha, is given to us in the state of deep sleep. A Puja Swami used to say that in the deep sleep we experience total happiness, but not aware, for we do experience. And therefore that becomes our standard, that we are always seeking this total happiness. We are seeking the ecstasy, ecstatic state. And there are moments in waking state when you feel ecstatic. There are moments, if you are fortunate, that it may have, someday it may happen, when suddenly you find your friend whom you have not met for 10 years and you see in Rishikesh, in a different kind of an attire, but you recognize, oh, this is my friend. Oh, with beard and stuff like that, but now he is sadhu. But you are very happy, you embrace him and you are so happy. So thus when these sudden things happen, then all of a sudden we feel happy for a moment. It is experience of ecstasy. And we always seek that experience because that is what similar we experience in ecstasy or we experience also in deep sleep. So that becomes our standard. And therefore we cannot be satisfied with this limited happiness. Well, Swami used to say that when you go to Madras those days, if you are a guest of a resident of Madras, then you wake up because there they take the coffee beans and grind them in the morning, and the whole house is full of the aroma of fresh coffee. You wake up that aroma with that aroma, and that coffee which is ground there and then and prepared, you never tasted that coffee. So that becomes your standard. Then you may come to Rishikesh and Ahmedabad and this and that and drink all this coffee. You are not satisfied. When the standard is set, the mind always keeps comparing. Similarly also in the deep sleep state we have that extra happiness In every experience of happiness, my mind does compare, and then it's okay. Sometimes when we are ecstatic in deep sleep, in waking state, remember that in deep sleep state there is no duality of experiencer and experienced. So both of them merge. In waking state, most of the time, there is the duality of enjoyer and enjoyed, but there may be some experience where you are so happy that momentarily that bhokta or experiencer also merges in that moment of ecstasy, then that is the level that you want to achieve all the time. So that is what we experience in deep sleep, because there the duality of experiencer and experienced is not there. And therefore Atma from waking goes to sleep, from sleep to waking independently, like a great fish goes from one bank of the river to the other at will. And so for that, another example is given here in the verse, passage 19, on the page 9. Tadyatha asminnakashe sheno va suparno va viparipatya shrantaha samhatya pakshau sunlayaya eva dhriyate evameva ayam purushaha एतस्मै अन्ताय धावते यत्र सुप्तः न कंचन कामं कामयते न कंचन स्वप्नं पश्यति. अस्मिन् आकाशे शेनो वा सुपर्णो वा, a hawk or a falcon. So there are very powerful birds and big birds, and they fly in the akash, in the space, at will, as they want to fly. So that is showing the freedom. Now, a whole day he has been flying and having his food, whatever, the prey, etc. Viparipatya shrantaha, he becomes tired in the evening. Samhatya pakshau sanlala eva dhriyate, stretching its wings, is bound for its nest. Evam eva, in a manner similar to that. So you can see how very rustic examples are given here. Examples are all day to day in a village, these are the examples. But with these simple day-to-day examples, Upanishad is communicating some very profound aspects, or profound truths to us. An example must be familiar to everybody. So in village, everybody sees these birds and their experiences and dream, or a river, etc. And so, example is that, or should be that, with which everybody is familiar. River, what do you mean by river, Swamiji? Suppose I say in the river there is flow of water. What is water? What is flow? What is river? Suppose that is not known to the listener, then that example won't work. Who is this hawk? Who is this falcon? Never heard of that, never seen them. In that case, this example will not communicate what is meant to be communicated. So example must be simple, familiar to all, so that you do not get lost into wondering, what is being talked about. In the evening then, when this bird becomes tired, samhatya pakshau, stretching its wings, sanlalaya eva dhriyate, is bound for its nest. So this is the example. Just as a falcon or a hawk in the evening gets tired, stretches the wings and returns to its nest. Evameva ayam purusha. So this Atma, the infinite being, Purusha means infinite. Purnatvat Purusha, the one who is Purna, complete or infinite or whole. Etasmi antaya dhavati. Atma also runs. So for that anta or state, Buddhanta, the state of waking, Swapnanta, the state of dream, and Swapnanta also can be state of sleep. So having struggled during the waking and dream states, just as the bird also struggles for the whole day, looking for its prey and so forth, so Atma is struggling during the waking state from one object to the other, seeking happiness, seeking peace, seeking love. Poor fellow does not know what he's seeking is in his own self. Because of ignorance, he is seeking happiness outside, seeking love outside, seeking peace outside, regardless. In that process, he gets tired because what he is seeking is not there. He seems to get happiness, a glimpse of happiness, and it seems to leave him because happiness is not there. But that is the reason why you get tired. The reason why there are disappointments in life is because what we are seeking is not where we are seeking. We are seeking happiness, so we think success is happiness, wealth is happiness, fame is happiness, power is happiness. That's what we are taught as we are raised in this society, and this is what we look around, see around. And when we get those things, you experience them, and you say, no, this is not what I want. And therefore, a person becomes disappointed, tired, exhausted. Now wants to go to a place where there can be total rest. So this big bird, a hawk, or a falcon, whole day looks for its prey and seeking this peace or whatever it is seeking. In the evening gets tired or exhausted and wants to go back where it can completely rest. In this case, it is his nest where he will be totally safe and resting. Here in case of Atma also is flying in the space of waking, in the space of dream, looking for its prey, looking for the happiness, looking for what it is seeking. By the time evening comes, meaning that it is tired, it stretches its wings and wants to go back to its nest, which is where it can rest, can feel safe and can rest. So the Atma runs or also is seeking that state which is a deep sleep state where it is like his nest, where it feels totally safe, totally happy, totally free. Evameva aham purusha etasmi antaya dhavati. Anta here means the state. So also is Purusha, the Atma also is seeking dhavati, runs towards that state, which is the deep sleep state. Having struggled during the waking state, having struggled during the dream state, then ultimately tired, exhausted, wants to go back to its own state, that is the deep sleep, where it can rest completely. Yatra supto na kanchana kamam kamayate na kanchana swapnam pashyati. Yatra suptaha, where the sleeping one, na kanchana kamam kamayate, does not desire any desirable objects. Kamam kamayate. Na kamayate does not desire. Kamam, a desirable object. So where one does not desire any object, The kanchana swapnam pashyati, where one does not see any dream. So this is state of deep sleep. Deep sleep is, waking is characterized by various desires, and dream is characterized by dreaming. Deep sleep is that which is devoid of both waking as well as dreaming. Waking means desiring various objects, and deep sleep there is no desire. In dream you project your own world and also have similar struggles and experiences. So when this fellow gets ultimately tired of dream also. Gets tired of waking, goes to dream. Gets tired of dream, and then goes to sleep to its own natural state. Yatra supto na kanchana kamam kamayate na kanchana swapnam pashyati. Same statement is taken from here into the Mandukya Upanishad. So whenever you have a chance to study that Upanishad, you will find the statement. Now look at the statement. Yatra supto na kanchana kamam kama. Yatra supta, where the sleeping one, na kanchana kamam kamayate, where the sleeping one does not desire any objects, the kanchana swapnam pashyati, where he does not see any dream. Now, where one does not desire anything, that is free from waking state. Where one does not see any dreams, free from dream state. There is a supta, where the sleeping one does not desire anything, the sleeping one does not see any dream. That's a little strange thing. Meaning that we are experiencing dream, experiencing deep sleep. The one who is experiencing dream and deep sleep is a sleeping fellow. When you say he is sleeping, then where is the question of dream? Where is the question of desire? Yatra supta na kanchana. Yatra supta means sleeping. Na kanchana kamam kamayate, where the sleeping one does not have any desire. Na kanchana swapnam pashyati, where he does not see any dream. Well, a sleeping fellow does not have any desire. Sleeping, when you say supta, it is already understood that he has no dream and he is not waking. Then why does the Upanishad add that one where the sleeping one does not desire and sleeping one does not see the dreams? That means the one who desires right now in the so-called waking and dreams in a dream state is a sleeping fellow. The one who is asleep of ignorance. So yatra supta, one who is sleeping in the sleep of ignorance, he does not desire anything, that is not awake, not see any dream, that is not his dreaming. A sleeping person experiences sleep, you follow? So who experiences waking state? Sleeping person. Who experiences dream state? Sleeping person. How do you mean, Swami? Sleeping person experiences waking state, but sleeping in the sleep of ignorance. The one sleeping in the sleep of ignorance does not. That was his waking dream. All of these are experiences in the state of ignorance. So we think that we are awake, but Upanishad says we are sleeping. Sleeping what? Sleeping to a true nature. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Ya nisha sarvabhutanam tasyam jagrati sanyami yasyam jagrati bhuta, meaning that where the wise person is awake, there the ignorant people are sleeping. So that is the supta here. One who is sleeping in the sleep of ignorance. So that way we are sleeping right now. Na kanchana ka, where we are, so we are desiring. So we call it waking state. We are dreaming, we call dream state. But basically who experiences waking state? The sleeper. Who experiences the dream state? The sleeper. Sleeper means what? Who is ignorant. So one who is sleeping in the sleep of ignorance, as we are, let us say, then you are awake, but the sleeper is awake and sleeper is sleeping. You follow? Yatra supto na kanchana kam. So that's an interesting statement. Therefore, the sleep state is described like this. The one sleeping in ignorance does not experience the waking state and does not experience dream, that is called sleep. The two kinds of sleep are there. One sleep is the sleep of ignorance. Other sleep is the sleep which is state of mind. So waking, dream, deep sleep are all states of mind. But then the one who goes through all these states is an ignorant person who is sleeping in the sleep of ignorance. So one who is asleep in ignorance experiences waking, experiences dream, experiences deep sleep. So for whatever reason, the Upanishad has inserted that word yatra supta, na kanchana kamam kamayate. But anyway, so here, all we mean here is that there are discussion of three states: waking, dream and deep sleep. So deep sleep is a state where one does not have desires, which the waker has. One does not see the dreams, which the dreamer has. And that state is called the state of deep sleep. So what is said so far in last few passages is that Atma is unconnected to the two states of waking and sleep, not connected with dharma of the waker or the sleeper. He is neither waker nor sleeper, not affected by the attributes of waker or sleeper. By saying that what is being described is the essential nature of Atma, where Atma is free from waking, dream, deep sleep. But Swami, we are awake right now. That awake also is nothing but in state of ignorance, which is state of mind. You can be enlightened also in awake, but generally what is meant here is that a sleeping person, a person sleeping in the sleep of ignorance, desires in the waking state, dreams in the dream state. So, again, in the waking state, we are identified with the gross body. The dream state, we are identified with the subtle body. Now, these are all tattva bodha, the primary things, but we have not taken time to explain all this. It is likely that some of our listeners may not be familiar with the mechanism of waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state. Here, the Upanishad is talking as though we already know these things. So, and I'm sure you also know, but I will still repeat that every day we go through these three states of waking, dream and deep sleep. These are all the states of the mind. The mind is awake right now. Mind may be dreaming when we are sleeping, and mind may be fully asleep when we are fast asleep. And in all of these, the Atma remains abiding in its own nature. These are states of mind, and Atma, or the self, or the consciousness, remains abiding in its own nature. It illumines. We saw that with the example of the dream, we were told how Atma is a light in which the dream world shines, and therefore Atma is a light in which the waking world also shines. The so-called luminaries like the sun and the moon and fire in the waking state are also illumined by Atma. Although sun seems to illumine us, but then sun also is not self-luminous. In our day-to-day life we can say sun is self-luminous, but sun also shines a light of consciousness, Moon also shines the light of consciousness. All these luminaries which we think are self-illumined. Sun is self-illumined, moon is self-illumined, fire is self-illumined. But then, how do you know that sun is shining? Swamiji, when my eyes are open and I look at the sun, I see the sun is shining. That means the eyes illumine the sun when I can see the sun. But are the eyes having their own light, or eyes are also illumined by some other light? Yes, eyes are illumined by the mind. Because if my mind is elsewhere, then even if I look up there, I may not see. So, the sun is illumined by the eyes are illumined by the mind, and the mind is illumined by consciousness. Because ultimately, mind also is matter, remember. Mind also is a product of subtle matter. This body is product of the matter in the gross form, whereas mind is the product of the same matter in the subtle form, but mind is matter nevertheless, and matter means that which is unconscious, which cannot shine on its own, which needs to be illumined in order to reveal itself. And so mind also is unconscious, needs light of consciousness to reveal. That's the reason why in deep sleep state, when the consciousness is not there, the mind also is not revealed. And thus, it is the Atma or the Self or the consciousness that illumines the mind, that mind illumines the eyes, and eyes illumine the sun. What is that, Swami? Eyes illumine the sun? Close your eyes. Will you see the sun? So when can you see the sun? When the eyes illumine the sun. Close your mind. Will you be aware of your eyes? No. So eyes are illumined by the mind, and the mind is illumined by the self or the consciousness. Rupam durshyam lojanam taddrusyam druktumanasam drusyadivritya sakshi drugevana dushyade. In text all the drusya vivekaha. Says the external forms are seen by the eyes are seen by the mind is seen by the consciousness, and consciousness is seen by what? He is only seer. So other things are seer and seen, but Atma is only seer and not seen. Tika, I don't want to confuse, because in case some of you are familiar, then just to connect with other familiar texts, I'm saying this. So, with the example of a fog, or what is that with a falcon, right? So, with a falcon, and that big fish, we were told how the self is unconnected to the mind, the waking, the dream, the deep sleep state, is an independent principle, self-illumined and illumining everything else. Then where is this ignorance, Swamiji? Is Atma ignorant? So waking is not the nature of Atma, that we understood. Dream is not the nature of Atma, we understood. Deep sleep is not the nature of Atma, we understood. But ignorance, is Atma connected to ignorance? Is Atma ignorant? Again, we will not dwell too much on that, but where is this ignorance? Is the self ignorant? Is the mind ignorant? So that's the general answer, that ignorance is in the mind. mind is the locus of ignorance. So we will, right now stay at that point that Atma is not the locus of ignorance. The mind is the locus. So ignorance is in the mind. So what is the relationship that Atma has then with mind and everything? The kind of relationship that, remember this, the kind of relationship that a rope has with the snake. You know the famous rope snake example? That in an inadequate light, sometimes we mistake a rope to be a snake. That's a stock example of Vedanta. And Vedantins have not that discovered another example, or some, what is it? Shell and the silver, but this is the rope and snake. There are not too many examples. We keep on repeating the same examples. Maybe you have to think about something more. So one day in Ahmedabad, many years ago, the old man in our audience, he got up at the end of the hall, says, Swamiji, change your example. He got so fed up with the same example of rope snake, rope snake, rope snake. I said, I'm sorry, I don't have another example. They have to give me. The teachers are only giving me this example, rope and snake. But what is the relationship that rope has with the snake? Is the snake in the rope? Snake upon the rope? Snake is superimposed upon the rope, meaning that they have no connection. The rope is in no way connected to the snake. And so the poison of the snake does not touch the rope at all in any way. It doesn't make the rope poisonous. And any other characteristics of snake that do not in any way affect the rope is called the adhishthanam substratum. Rope is the substratum upon which the snake is superimposed. Adhishthanam and adhyaropa. Adhishthanam, substratum. Somebody didn't like that somehow, the substratum business or whatever. I didn't have a chance to check with Swami. But anyway, so adhishthanam, adhyaropa means superimposition. Rope and snake, remember this. So what is the relationship between self or Atma and ignorance? Similar to that between the rope and snake. Atma is adhishthanam and ignorance enjoys only the state of superimposition. That's why he says snake is mithya. What is mithya? Which appears to be there but not really there. So also avidya is mithya, not real. And mithya is that which can be dispelled. So that snake can be dispelled by the knowledge of rope. So also the ignorance can be dispelled by the knowledge of the self. And thus the Atma is not connected to avidya, understand? Atma is the locus of avidya. In what way? Rope is the locus of snake. Similarly, Atma can be said to be the locus of ignorance, but the relationship is what? Adhishthanam, adhyaropa, substratum, superimposition, and just as the rope is not affected by the snake, so also the self is not affected by ignorance. If the self was affected by ignorance, poor fellow could never come out of it. Ignorance had the power to affect the self and make Atma ignorant and make Atma suffer. If ignorance and suffering, etc., that the self or we feel were real, even suffering also was connected with Atma, then you can never become free from suffering. But even when I feel I am suffering, I am not, because That suffering is only superimposed upon I, therefore, at some point in time, I can dispel it. So understand that Atma is ignorant, let us say, but what is the relationship between Atma and ignorance? Similar to that between rope and snake. Ignorance has to have some locus. Sometimes mind is the locus of ignorance. But mind itself is product of ignorance. You follow? Meaning that ignorance was there when mind was not there. So what came later cannot become the locus of what was before that. So ultimately we have to say that Atma is ignorant. Atma is locus of ignorance. In what way? Rope and snake. That is, the ignorance has a status similar to the rope. Atma has a status similar to snake, and Atma has a status similar to rope. Okay, now we'll continue tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.